All right, this is Brent Raynes for Alternate Perceptions Online Magazine. It's Wednesday, September the 10th. And once again, I'm talking with Rebecca Renfroe of Florida, somewhere down there in Florida. She's the author of Quantum Window and Dimensions. And, we did an interview a few months back and discussed a number of her extraordinary experiences through the years. She's got lots of them. And if you want to find out more, of course, there is her book that's available. And so anyway, we did a recording about a week ago, but some way or another I messed up. So we got to go back. And one of the things we had talked about, started out, was about in her local area and where she lives in Florida, that she had created some paperwork for the local government community, to kind of a disclosure thing regarding UFOs and what to do in the event that something happens or they need more information. So, as a longtime experiencer and researcher herself, she provided this information. So, I'll let her take it from there.
Hey, Brent, it's good to see you.
Good to see you,
I wanted
Rebecca.
to, yes, to say how glad I am to be talking to any and all groups that are out there,
Mhm.
particularly people who are ready for disclosure, want it. And we've just had a recent UAP, which was the other day, the congressional hearing, the third or fourth one, and this one was a little bit better. However, it still left the audience without any place to go for reports, any historical data from the past, any collection for researchers. There were no contactees, there were no experiencers, no researchers there. And it's still of the mindset that only those who are in a high position have any credence. I understand where that comes from. But
Mhm.
again, the audience participating and clapping and being there were grateful. However, it still left us, same things left out for the public's education.
Yeah.
So I know there are many groups out there, one in Washington itself, Paradigm, which is working hard to work on disclosure. And I applaud Representative Luna, and Mace for what they are doing, and all the congressmen and representatives who are there. I applaud that, and those who are whistleblowers. My heart really broke for the young man who was there and what has happened to him. And the grassroots educational proposal preparation plan that I wrote for my city was taken in 10 years ago and was in the mayor's office. And I met with the former mayor and this one, as well as the two different emergency managers. And in doing so, they listened, they asked questions. There wasn't any closed door, there wasn't any fear. It was just a matter of how does a local person like myself ask for or give some help for disclosure to a hometown. So in my contingency plan for contact, as many others have written, I was hoping to get this going because, as I quoted before, there was something that Oppenheimer and Einstein said in 1947 in a Princeton paper. I'm going to read this. International law should make place for a new law on a different basis, and it might be called Law Among Planetary Peoples, following the guidelines found in the Pentateuch. And what better benefit for humanity than to prepare an outline? So that's kind of what I did with my husband, put it together, and it was a UFO guide map at the local level with a flow chart presented, overall education, how you can go from the mayor to the city manager to the police department, fire department, emergency management services, newspaper, radio, TV, organizations, church, all the way down across the flow chart. You have headings under each one, but Brent, it is to help them dispense the information because each person is going to come according to their category that they fall under, education or church or whatever area they're working in, police department. And then, for instance, let's say the police is coming in and there are a couple of men who know nothing. They don't know how to stand, how far to stand back, what the limit is in terms if there was a crash, or if they should take their guns out if they see an ET. What are they looking at? If they haven't had any study, they're unprepared. If they have no education in telepathy or they have no gift for it, they're not going to know if they're talking to them or what they're saying, or or they get bombarded with thoughts and they don't know how to assimilate that. All that's understandable, but if you don't have anyone prepared for it, particularly those who are in emergency management or police or fire, it becomes a detriment, including the local person who has no idea what they're looking at, if it's fake or real. And there are signs you can tell the public. For instance, in identification, as we talked about before, Brent, if you're looking up in the sky and you are seeing an object, if you have a certain lead light or something, you can shine it. If it goes through it, it's most likely a hologram, or it's organic in nature, and you'll have a waving type of material because of its organic and material nature. And also, if there's camouflage and you think you're seeing something because the space is moving like water, you'll notice you can see them if they're interchanging with one another or they cross paths. Then they lose that magnetic energy, and you can see what's there and what's been camouflaged, and then it immediately turns back once they're cloaked again.
Now,
And so if you, there's also, let me finish that. I just said that my train of thought can't,
Sure.
I'm sorry, Brent.
No problem.
The train of thought is that also if you're sensitive, you will be able to know who's aboard the craft. You may even see it by remote viewing. And you'll also have a hum that you'll usually hear. So there are certain indicators to tell you whether what you're standing under or looking at is real or not. And of course, it will break the law of physics completely if it's moving at a distance from you. Now, what was your question?
Oh, I was just wondering if you could tell us where in Florida this community is that has that you've presented this
Oh, to my
information.
hometown, just my
Yeah,
hometown.
yeah,
Yes, I'm in the middle of Florida. I'm right in the center,
right in the center. Okay.
smack dab.
All
Yes,
right.
in Lakeland. So the suggestion was to get all of that into, and then you have in the flow chart also with each segment that you're training a person. Like say you got education. The education department is going to have to be different. You're going to have to go maybe through one through junior high and then high school through college, because different people are not going to be able to retain the information, and they need it presented in a different manner. Children have to be presented information in a totally different manner than an adult,
Oh, yes.
and those in an administrative capacity are going to receive it differently from a worker. And so you're going to have a TV person there, an anchor, a representative, and the church either is going to reject it total outright and won't show up, or certain people will from different denominations. They will accept it and they won't
Yeah.
deny of God's creation. But I understand others believe they are totally demonic. I understand that side, but it's time now for us to move on and realize we're dealing with other individuals who exist on other planets and other galaxies. And then I go on to a section in here, and I start with 1967, and then I go up to 2024 and address the hearings. And Winston Churchill had one. I put the saying at the bottom of one of the pages. It's not very long. It's like seven pages is my just quick analysis that I submitted. Those who fail to learn the lessons of history are destined to repeat it. And if we don't deal with the information correctly, then we will repeat the mistakes and everyone will still continue to be left in the dark. And I understand the approach of what they're trying to do with disclosure in the congressional hearings, but it's not benefiting the education of the public. They're approaching it from the angle of the money and the access programs that are denied and so forth. I understand it. The models to consider for implementation for proposal, I start with the guide. There is one for police officers, which is now being implemented across the United States. Then there's the 1992 Firefighters Manual, which is chapter 13 on UFOs. You've got CSETI, Granada, Cometa, President Carter's administration, all the protocols. You've got NASA Air Force Manual. I just list them all the way through our time, which would also be educational for the public. And here again, when we talked about being informed, I wrote another quote. Now, this was Ronald Reagan in 1981. If we are to guard against ignorance and remain free, as Jefferson cautioned, it's the responsibility of every American to be informed, end quote. That was Reagan. Then I end on the last page with recommended resources, and I'm just going to read a few of these off. that might be helpful to those who are listening. I list the New Paradigm Institute out of DC, Opus, NICAP. The Hidden Hand video is an overall educational video from 2013. There's Gaia series with Richard Dolan. There's the International Center for Extraterrestrial Research. There's IUFO Bureau, which has begun. Its research began in '57. And there's Carrie Cassidy, Project Camelot. Jim Mars will give you your historical background you need. Books by Kathy Martin and Stanton Friedman with all your research detail. Bill Schroeder, former military PI policeman, wrote a wonderful historical approach, which was followed by NORAD. That book is called Unknown Down. That is Bill Schroeder and his cousin, Dennis Force. Chris Montgomery, researcher, wrote UFOs, A Scientific Inquiry. He worked with Steven Spielberg on Taken. You've got MUFON, where you can go to make a report if you need to, and other programs that I've listed above. Then you've got Simon Parks with Connecting Consciousness. And Ray Hernandez, which believes all of it, most everything, and he's trying to pull it all into one hat called Consciousness. He has Consciousness and Contact Research Institution. Our institute, he worked with Dr. Edgar Mitchell on Free. And then I wrote the book Quantum Windows and Dimensions, A Christian Woman's Journey of Faith and ET Contact, where I try my best to blend in chronological order my life of contact since childhood, where the military have always been involved. So it's difficult for me to sit and listen to these hearings when nothing is left of what I consider the educational side for the public to take and say, okay, I got a nugget. I'm going to go watch this film. I'm going to go watch this. I'm going to go read that. And it's left out.
And
but I do understand. Okay.
Lakeland's an interesting location. I know there's been quite a bit of activity there in the past of UFOs. And I think George Fawcett was back in the 60s, 70s. I think he was in Lakeland, a well-known ufologist, and created a UFO study group down there back in the 60s and 70s, maybe. He kind of traveled around. He was in North Carolina and Massachusetts and different places, creating different groups. But anyway, that's all.
But along with that, that's wonderful. Thank you for acknowledging good old Lakeland. I also had an attachment called Ideas for Overall Disclosure to prepare, delineate, and decipher. And mine is, of course, very simple. And I'm sure it's already there on the Intel table and in the inner workings of those who either work with ETs, because we have those who work with the lower conscious groups, the heavy, darker reptilians, not those who are okay, and those who work with the good ETs and those from other planets that are trying to help. So we have a a yin and a yang here going on. We do have a dark and a light existence on our own planet. So we need an Earth as well as an orbit meeting to review all past plans, and we need to vet the group of ETs who are most benevolent to mankind, and then review all the former meetings that have taken place in the past with contactees and everyone coming together. And I think it would not be a bad idea to have the presidents stand in front with all of their cabinet positions behind them, and those who have worked, like Colonel Carl Nell, who's been speaking out, have a general and colonels who are there, who know what's going on, to stand with their president, and all of the other leaders of the countries. They make their announcements. They have an ET species with them, and they make that announcement, and then have it down organized to the local level. Because if this thing, some believe it's just a comet, some believe it is otherwise, but if this is coming in and it distributes to the separate planets, it unloads passengers or beings or things off to Mars or Saturn as it goes along, or it comes closer to our planet and dispenses crafts out of it, and we have not prepared our planet, people are going to come out with their guns. It's a natural reaction, I understand. It's so therefore, I'm glad for Avi Loeb having the discussion. I'm glad for my other friends who are great astronomers who are on other sides and look at it differently. Carrie Cassidy she has an interesting take, and her beliefs are strong on what it is. She is not favorable to what it is. And then there is David Sarita with her on Nino. Nino has a very good one, because Carrie and David and Nino, they work together on this presentation, which is on her Telegram page, where it discusses what's coming in a mathematical, scientific way. And then there are other speakers, if you listen to Avi or read his articles, and then there are other astronomers who say the opposite. But either way, we're unprepared at this point. So that's kind of where I am on the grassroots. Did you have any questions on it that you'd like to ask me before we go to our next subject?
Well, of course, there's the idea of other dimensions, and I know John Keel, who I really got started with back in 1969, age 17, corresponded with him. He was really presenting the idea of ultra terrestrials too, that existed within already here, and they could maybe be energetic. I know there's a lot of researchers talking about plasmoids, maybe intelligence of beings that are actually kind of like a plasma-based life form instead of like carbon-based like us.
Yes, Brent.
And that could actually project images of different species, or they could appear like someone told me recently they thought they were seeing a reptilian and then it turned into a Nordic. I don't know. There's a lot of questions, but
Brent, I'll intersperse here on your comment on that. Some of the reptilians that use their shape-shifting abilities, because I've seen it, it can be very disturbing and frightening, and therefore that's another part that's of what I call leaning towards the darker side, where you have to be informed about that. But if you approach it from this, chameleons change colors. We have projections that we can do now in our technology, and we have beams that can do certain things, and we're taking down some of the craft right now against their own better judgment and against the people who are in there, against them. And so we have so many different agendas. It's a wide variety, and so it is with the different species. Some of them can change and can camouflage and are referred to as a shapeshifter. But and again, not all of them are bad. That's why, how do you recognize something? How do you know? As a Christian in this world, I have to constantly work from, I'm not dealing with this or that, I'm dealing with spiritual darkness in dark places. So I have to use my intuition, my wisdom. I have to ask God for guidance. I have to sometimes put Jesus in front of me and say, I need you to delineate what I'm looking at. Only you can do that, because I'm not able to see. They're not letting me see. So show me what it is I'm supposed to see. If this is a good or bad species, or what is the craft? Can you identify this for me? Are they trying to have a good communication, or entering unknowingly or unwittingly? This is the kind of thing that we have to deal with. But I deal with, that I have to do from my side to identify something.
right.
But that's,
And was I think it requires sometimes like a certain sensitivity that not everybody possesses too. Um, and I'm wondering if maybe in your own family, some of your own family had kind of like the second sight or whatever, or enhanced psychic ability. Some people report, as in the study, like people like Ray Hernandez, you mentioned, free organization,
yes.
that
Go Ray.
yeah, that that they those experiences actually, after their encounters, sometimes they had enhanced insights abilities as arose, or maybe they were already kind of wired differently, and it was easier for a contact or interactions of some form or another to occur. And so anyway.
You are correct. And I'll answer your question that I had both grandmothers who were sensitives,
Mhm.
and my mother, and she had a great deal of discernment. My dad was not closed to anything. That was not a part of his daily routine. He dealt
Yeah.
more as an architect and engineer with the practical, but he was never closed, and they always listened to what I had to say. They listened to every dream or everything I would share with them or talk to them about, and so I had a different kind of upbringing to where things were open, accepted, given, acknowledged. And then I had all my cousins, and many of them are sensitive as well and have wonderful gifts. So
And
yes,
I know that in our previous interview that didn't record, but you talked about you have Scottish ancestry on both sides, which may play into it. And we talked about some of the experiences you had when over in Scotland in years past, and I don't know if we're ready to get into that or not, but
we certainly can. I took out the book to show you. I started a whole book here, and it says, we can't see it. I'm sorry, I'm breaking the form here. Stories not in the book. And it is filling up to about 20 pages so far of things that I did not include in the book. But I chose some like you asked me to, and so we'll get into it. And
okay.
yeah,
And if you ever want to write up some stories for the
yes,
alternate
yeah.
perceptions, that would be great. I've had quite a number of people that have done that, and we get some great stories from people's lives, and a lot of people who start out as researchers. I've had this experience in my over 58 years of working with people and suddenly finding out, oh, you saw a UFO land and you saw beings and stuff. I mean, it's quite quite intriguing when you're working with people that already know from a firsthand level of experience about these things. And anyway, uh, I know one lady down in Florida, Ramona Clark, years ago, back in '73, I met her, and uh, she was part Cherokee, about half Cherokee and half German in her ancestry, and she was pretty plugged in to these things. And she investigated flying saucers and Bigfoot and all kinds of things. That I remember when she went to Brook, Brooksville, Florida, to investigate Bigfoot. I said, some people think that's related. She said, no, I think it's more physical than some of the UFO stuff. That changed later though, when she actually had these experiences investigating that, and you know, she had experience with her and her military husband. They later divorced, but and 13-year-old son Steve, of seeing a craft near the Mayport uh, naval station where my ship was home ported back in 73 to
Wow.
74. I was on a destroyer escort in the Navy, and I remembered corresponding with this Ramona, and lo and behold, she lived right on this base. And so I could regularly go over and talk with her. And of course, 73 was when the big flat broke out. So we investigated some things together, and I learned from that experience, like the kind of questions she asked, like this girl had seen a UFO, a flying disc near a Jacksonville Naval Station, 2 nights in a row, and she felt like she was being watched, and it had lights along the rim and just hovering there. And she called the police, which is how we found out about the story, because it was a little write up in the Jacksonville newspaper. And so we went and interviewed her. And Ramona asked her, have you had any other unusual experiences? Not UFO, but just unusual experiences. And at first she said no. And then, you know, lo and behold, she started saying, oh, well, I got a phone call once, and it was from someone who had passed away, and they wanted to come see me, and I got all scared, and I said, "No, no, don't you come see me." You're not, and other things that happened to her, and so she started remembering little by little, and to Ramona, who was a lifelong experiencer, there was always these psychic spiritual things that also she felt opened her up for all these other experiences. And she went to Brooksville and investigated their Bigfoot, and saw UFOs there. So, I mean, even a ball of light came into her bedroom window one night and hovered in front of her face. She was asleep at the time, but the husband, he told her about it later. So, anyway, um, I got off on that, but that was just an example.
Well, no, I think that's wonderful. You reminded me of something that might be important to share. So I will condense these so we can get them all in. You asked me to share some things that are not in the book and also to stay with Scotland. So one was visiting there were castles, and I talked about this before, so now we'll go into it.
Oh, alrighty.
We had a driver who, on the days that we did not go to the places that I had set with the agency,
Hmm.
because as I wanted your listeners to know, I had been having dreams and visions of places I did not know what they were from 1997 all the way up till after I got married to when we went to Scotland to march with the military tattoo. And then we took a month of driving around Scotland to all the places that I had had these dreams and visions of, because over the years I found out where they were. I were given as a present in a book, completely unknown by the person who gave it to me, or I saw it, or I finally began to research and put it all together, went to the agency and I said, here's where we're going. And it took us around and up into some place. And then when we got through looking to where we were going, the Michael, our driver, would take us to a new location. One of those was a castle, and it was Dunrobin was a beautifully restored castle, stunning gardens, and we're walking up to the castle, and I look up, and out of the second floor was a woman climbing out on something. I couldn't make out what it was. She was holding on to it, turned around and looked at me, and then it vanished and faded. So I walked in, I talked to one of the gentlemen who was there to guide people through the castle. I asked him about a ghost there, a spirit, a woman, someone up in the second floor, and so forth. And then he just smiled and said, "You need to go through the tour, you'll learn about it." I said, "Okay, but has anyone else said anything?" He said, "No, and I'm glad that you did because you have verified something as you came in." So I went through and I found out it was in one of the century, 17th or 18th century, under Sutherland, a young girl, while Lord Sutherland was abducted, taken to the castle, put in a room. He was going to marry her, and she just tries to escape, tries to knot together the bed sheets, climb out the window, but falls to her death. So that verified that for me. That was just one castle. The other one, I'm still trying to find its location. I know it have it I can go back on my Facebook page and see where I have put all of these, and then I can find the name of it again. And it was just partially in half circles, Brent. And as I walked in, we went through it to the other side to where there was a lake. And then as we were leaving and I turned around over to one side, all of a sudden, as if in a movie theater, the animals and wagons and people in dress from another time period from the 17th century started to pop up. And they were busy and moving, and what am I seeing? Is there a projection coming from somewhere? And the woman who has a basket in her hand turns around and looks at me. I mean, I know exactly how she was dressed, and she looks at me in bewilderment, because our time span, here I am in this century, and she's in that one, and we're looking at each other trying to make out what. And she turns around to talk to somebody. "Do you see what I see?" And I'm going to my husband, "Do you guys see what I'm seeing?" And so we had a time. Okay, so that's two of the things that happened. The other
Yeah.
one that was at the Stones of Kalanish. And my husband had said, if something happens to you or starts to happen to you where you feel like you're going to go through something or you're going to be pulled through something some way or another, please don't do it. Don't touch it or pull your hand away or your body or whatever. So we got to the Stones of Kalanish, which was one of the places that I had had a vision. So when I found out where it was, and you go over all this peat, and this is nothing across this land to get there. Very few people that day, and as our wonderful driver and historian and Scottishman took us through everything, I went over to the stone where I had had the vision in the dress and how I got there and so forth, and I'm on the ground, and I just sit. And in the back, in the lower lumbar area, I start to hear the B flat tone. Being a musician, I knew what tone it was. And then it started to vibrate. And I'm going, oh, maybe I can go through the stone. if that's what's happening here. There's a tone, there's a vibration, it's affecting the body. It started to come around to the stomach, and I felt as if somebody was just going to just, you know, how someone gives you a hug from the back? It's just
Mhm.
almost as if the vibration and everything was coming around the back and was going to take me and just pull me right through. And I'm going, okay. I remember what my husband had said, get up, get up. So I did. So that was an interesting thing in Scotland. But the
Yeah.
most wonderful, heartwarming thing, after we finished one of the places where we needed to go, the driver takes us, we're in the northest, highest part of Scotland, on the mainland. And he says, I want to take you to a spot where everyone gathers and takes pictures. And I've been coming here for 15 years. I said, oh, okay. We get there, there are dogs out and children, photographers, and people and families. And it's right there at the water's edge. And I said, what are they waiting for? They're waiting for the dolphins. And the driver says, and they haven't showed up. Everybody's getting kind of, where are they? Where are they? So I play with the dogs. And then he says, well, I guess they're not going to show up. And I said, well, we got to go call them. I don't think anything of it. You just go to the water and you call them. So, and use it like, think like a sonar and whatever, and get your consciousness going and be kind and loving about it and place your cell phone, so to speak, the cell phone call. So I went to the water. It was a photographer on my left and parents on my right and some children running around trying to get their feet wet. And so I reached my hand into the water in the direction where I thought I should go and sent out my thoughts and asked for them to come. And I said, they need to see you. The children need you. The photographers need you. Well, within a matter of less than 2 minutes,
Yeah.
boom, they just were coming. And so the Michael, our driver, said, they've never come this close to shore. I've never seen this before. He says, oh, I'm going back to the car. And he turned around and ran back to the car. And we just rejoiced. And I looked at him and I said, well, you asked where they were. So anyway, I didn't try to explain it. And we just walked back along the shoreline and
Well, there was there's an article I gotta send you the information on. It was in a book by Lyle Watson, who has written a number of books in the year. He's passed on now, but he used to travel all over the world, and there was a story of being with a certain tribe. I don't know what country for sure it was, but I'd have to look it up. But I was recently sharing that with somebody, and anyway, this group of people would there was, I think, this medicine man maybe would meditate, and they would call in um, some sort of big dolphin, I think, and it would, or
mm,
no, maybe it was a large turtle. Anyway, I can't remember all. There were a number of
okay.
stories, but it was pretty wild, and everybody come out to greet it, and right at the time that was supposed to show up. So anyway, I noting that we've only got about 4 minutes left.
Oh, wow, it went fast.
It did.
Okay, I'm going to share one more for the person that you said. First of all, if they are interested, please go to Amazon, and it's Rebecca Renfroe. My last name is Borneman, but it's under Renfroe, and you just type in quantum windows and dimensions, a Christian woman's journey of faith and ET contact. And it goes in the best I can in chronological order with lots of pictures.
Okay,
The
awesome.
last story had to do with something you just shared, Brent, which was great. It has to do with connections to those who have passed. And in the Christian community, I understand if a listener is in the Christian faith, as I am, some believe that this does not happen. However, that has not been the experiences of my life any more than finding ETs as demonic. They can choose a side. And 500 were resurrected on Jesus' resurrection and went to the city and visited their families. And how did Jesus bring Elijah and Moses up to the transfiguration? They were supposedly dead. What did he do? Introduce them to the disciples? They didn't have pictures then. How did they know who they were? And and where did our wonderful Lazarus go? Where was he sleeping before he was resurrected? And we within the church that I belong to believe that if he descended into the dead and rose again, where did he go for 3 days? If you do
Mhm.
believe that Christ died and rose again, if you do, where did he go? We believe he went to get those out of captivity who were waiting for him. And
That's
so this is my personal faith. So
okay.
in terms of, and I do tell a story about a child and
Okay.
someone who passed. That's in the book. Do
All
we have to
righty.
go?
Yeah, I'm afraid so.
Gotta go. Okay. Bye.
Okay. Thank you, Rebecca. Appreciate it. We'll stay
Thank
in
you.
touch.
Okay.
Bye bye.